What's up, everybody? Hope y'all are doing well. Today's video is just gonna be kind of a continuation of some of these new additions that I've gotten to my collection. I know it's been a while, so before I get into the video, I want to give a shout out to a fellow YouTuber by the name of Tommy Wiley for inspiring me to make this video. I was watching your video of changing your collection for daylight savings, and I kind of was just like, you know what, I'm gonna make a video. So here we are. Alright, so the first clock that I got for you guys today is actually one that's pretty rare and that I've wanted to get for a long time. So this clock is from France. I'm not sure if it was made in France. It looks very English to me, but it's by the Favori clock company. Now, the Favori clock company is a company in France. They're fairly less known, and from what I understand, it seems like they're more like a retailer, so they imported all of their cases and movements and then sold the clocks as their own. Overall, it's a very simple case. You got the veneer that just runs all the way across the timbre case, and then it's got this decorative trim at the bottom. So very simple, yet very attractive in my opinion. It's a very small clock too. It's only like 16 inches wide, and then it is 9.5 inches tall, and then it is 7 inches deep. Now, this clock plays 3 different chimes. It plays Westminster, plays Favori, and it plays Whittington, not the common version but a lesser known, and it also has a silent feature. Alright, so this clock actually required a lot of work. So I got it off of eBay. I had missed out on one very similar to this about 6 years ago. I got outbid, was disappointed, but stuff happens. So I was just kind of like, I don't know when I'm going to see one again, but it'll be there eventually. Well, fast forward about 6 years, and from the same seller, not the same seller, but from one seller, 2 come out of nowhere at the same time. So it was kind of like I had to pick which one I wanted, and I zoned in on this one, and I was lucky enough to win the auction. So it came all the way from England, and this is the first time I've had a clock come overseas that wasn't damaged. This clock actually required a lot of work in the movement. It required technically 2 overhauls. So I took it apart and cleaned everything the first time, put a couple bushings in, and then I put it back together, and within the first 2 days of me putting it back together, the chiming mainspring had shattered into over 25 pieces probably. I'd never seen a mainspring do this before. So I ended up having to take it all apart again. I put a new mainspring in there. I went over and I touched up on some of the things that I didn't do the first time with the movement and put it back together, and it's been running ever since. So I'm gonna let you hear it. It chimes pretty fast, but it's beautiful. I love it, and yeah. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the Westminster chime. I'm gonna play the quarter to and the hour for each chime so you can hear all 5 of the different sections. And the hour. Alrighty, moving on, we got the Favori chime. And at the hour. And last but not least, my personal favorite, the Whittington. Alrighty, the next clock that I have for you guys is probably the one that I've been most excited for you guys to see. So what we have here is a display of a Westminster chiming movement that is a variant that only uses one hammer. So before I get into the details, I'm sure you guys are dying to see how this works and everything, so I'm going to let you hear it and then I will explain it. Alrighty, so this movement was made in England in the 1960s. It was designed by a guy named Rudolph Blessing and was made by Blessing. However, it was stamped foreign right here, stamped foreign due to British law. So you'll see a lot of clocks that have movements that are unmarked except with the foreign brand, and that's from British law and imports and stuff. So this clock was in really busted condition when I got it. The movement hadn't been loved in a while, I guess is how I'd put it. So I ended up having to put in somewhere close to 30 bushings. I had to replace every gear on all three trains. So you see on this back plate, I replaced all of these bushings. And then it's the same for the front plate. I had to clean the movement, and then I ended up having to replace this crutch. The original one had a point right here that could rotate, and that's how you could put it in beat. However, since this clock doesn't have like a covering, it's a lot more susceptible to outside forces. So that double point of rotation with the pallets and on the crutch, it just made it a nightmare to keep it running. So I ended up replacing it. I had to kind of mess with this a little bit to make it work, but I got it. It's been running great. It's been chiming great. I ended up making the base myself. I took kind of just a piece of wood that I found that I liked at Ace, and I took some like shivs and I glued the shivs together to kind of make posts, and then I sawed them down, and then I glued them. And the first time I did it, the movement wasn't very stable, so I ended up taking it apart, stained everything, made it look the way I wanted, and then I put toothpicks underneath and to kind of give it like a guide with the screw that I have under, and then I ended up using popsicle sticks to kind of make the gap smaller so that the movement was snug. So after doing all that, probably took me around 3 days. I managed to get everything together. It turned out great. I'm very pleased. So yeah. Now mechanically, the design of this movement is fairly complex, but it's a lot simpler than you'd think given the challenges presented with only using one hammer. So if you come down to my little drawing here, I have a hammer, and since there's only one hammer and 5 chime rods, you run into a problem where you have to get it to move along the y-axis or vertical, but also the x-axis horizontal at the same time. And they managed to do that using only one gear. So the way that this works is you have a gear that has a cam stacked on top of almost like a count wheel. There. This count wheel in the back has 4 teeth per section. Now on the Westminster chime, there's 4 notes per section. So what this does is this comes down and it interacts with this lever right here. And this is what controls the vertical motion. Now simultaneously, you have this cam with this arm that interacts with this little piece here. Now this piece is connected to this guide with a spring that interacts with the hammer, and this is what controls the horizontal movement. So as you can see, when this lever is pulled, as it would move along the cam, the hammer moves horizontally. Now, when this is lifted, the hammer moves vertically. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll play you the first quarter and I'll show you this in action. Now from down here, now from here, And finally, from here. With the back plates hosting the mechanism to get the hammer to move how it wants, the front plate hosts the mechanisms that communicate the chiming, the striking, and the time. So it's your fairly typical chiming the clock movement. With on the chime side you have your cam, striking side you have rack and snell, striking with the star to activate. So yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much it for this clock, so on to the next one. So the next clock that I have for you guys is this beautiful Ansonia Crystal Palace. So this clock comes from about the 1870s. It was made by the Ansonia Clock Company. It's got two figures standing on a base with a mirror in the pendulum. It strikes on a bell, and it's got a beautiful decorative dial. So this clock required a lot of work. I got it at the National Clock Show in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I was able to get it for a really good price. It was just really beat up. The movement needed a few bushings. The case needed total restoration, but I was able to do it and it came out great. So I'll let you hear it. I have the strike wound out because I live with my college roommates and this clock is really loud, so. But yeah. This clock's supposed to have a glass dome that goes over it. This one didn't come with the dome, obviously, but other than that, it's completely original and in great shape. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this video. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys whenever I upload next.